Hello and welcome to Trails Worth Hiking, the show that brings you some of the most interesting backpacking and trekking routes in the world. I'm your host, Jeremy Pendry. In the first part of the show, we bring you the story and history of a trail. Then we tell you what it's like to hike the trail and how you can do it. On this episode, we are going back to Nepal. But this time we aren't just going to hike in the deep gorges and high elevation passes of the Himalayas, among the highest mountains on Earth, though there will be some of that. Instead, this time we'll do an entirely different type of trek on a brand new route planned and forged by our guest. The route starts on the low plains at the border of India near the city in Nepal where the Buddha was born, and we'll trek north, working our way higher and higher through the hills of Nepal, passing through regions that are homes to different cultures along the way, until we are finally back in the high mountains where we'll reach the border with China. On this episode of Trails Worth Hiking, we'll trek north across Nepal on the Nepal border-to-border through hike. Welcome to the show, everyone. Thank you for joining me. I want to congratulate Salvatore Lacosto. He was the first person to correctly guess that the photo I posted on the Instagram contest we recently held was from episode 18, the Half Dome and Clouds Rest episode. The photo was of my daughter climbing up the final approach to Clouds Rest summit. As I probably said in episode 18, that view from the top of Clouds Rest is, in my opinion, the most incredible view in all of Yosemite National Park. So if you haven't been to Clouds Rest, check out episode 18, or you can even do it as a long day hike if you want. Salvatore had hiked Clouds Rest before and immediately recognized the shot from that final approach to the summit. Thanks to Outdoor Herbivore for providing a $50 e-gift card to Salvatore. And as a reminder, Outdoor Herbivore has great vegetarian and vegan backpacking meals, but you don't need to be a vegetarian or a vegan to really enjoy these meals. They are very filling, use high-quality ingredients, and are easy to prepare. So if you want to give them a try, go to OutdoorHerbivore.com. And thanks again to Outdoor Herbivore for sponsoring the show and for sponsoring this Instagram Guess Which Episode contest. One additional announcement. As a reminder, I'm going to be in Big Bear Lake in Southern California in June for the Highlander event. It'd be great if you want to come and join me. This is an opportunity to go backpacking with me. If you have been a hut-to-hut hiker or a day hiker primarily, but have never done backpacking or have only done it a few times and want to improve your skills, or if you're interested to do a more social form of backpacking, this is a great event for you. The Highlander event is fully supported backpacking. All meals and beverages are provided and included, even including snacks. You only carry one day of food at a time. Campsites are provided at campgrounds, which have real facilities like bathrooms and water. And there are experts who will be providing talks on various backpacking-related subjects. There'll be live music at the end and yoga sessions daily. You get a detailed map, GPX tracks, and there are prep webinars. There'll be first aid staff on hand as well in case of emergencies. And full backpacking gear is available to rent for those that are just trying out backpacking and don't have their own gear. Or, of course, you could always rent that from your local REI as well. And the cool thing about this Highlander event is you can choose how far you want to go and how many days you want to do. So you can do 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, or 5 days. I'm going to be doing the 5-day Hercules version of the event starting on June 17th, 2025. But if you only had the weekend available to you, you could sign up for a shorter version. And the cool thing is, even if you sign up for a shorter version of the event, you can end up hiking with me or seeing me in camp because the starts for the events are staggered so that everyone finishes together. So no matter which version you do, you'd have the opportunity to potentially hike with me or hang out with me at the Highlander event. So for example, if you did the 2-day version, I will have already hiked 3 days when you start. So we would still hike together for those last 2 days, or at least be on the same trail at the same time. I don't know if you and I would have the same pace or not, so I don't want to promise anything. But certainly we'd have the opportunity to hang out in camp. The distances per day are reasonable, but challenging. The area is very beautiful up there by Big Bear Lake. And Trails Worth Hiking listeners get a 20% discount off the registration fee for the Highlander event in Big Bear Lake, California, using the discount code Jeremy20. So that's all caps Jeremy, and then the numbers 20, Jeremy20. If you register with that code, it will not only get you a discount, but will also help the show. Also, if you register, send me an email at trailsworthhiking@gmail.com or reach out to me through the Instagram account and let me know that you are coming. That way we can have a chance to connect and possibly hike together, or at a minimum, hang out together at camp in the evening. I'll put a link to the Highlander website in the show notes. I haven't been to the Highlander event before, but I'm excited to give it a try in June and hope to see you there. All right, our guest on this episode is Rajan Simkada, the owner of Earthbound Expeditions, which is a trekking company in Nepal. You may remember Rajan was our guest on episode 14, where we talked about trekking in Nepal more generally. And I hired his company when I went to Nepal in 2019 for my Manaslu trek, which we covered in episode 15. So if you want to hear about a really interesting trek in Nepal, besides this one that we're going to talk about, episode 15 is another opportunity. And we also covered the Everest Base Camp trek in Nepal. So this is our third trek we're covering in Nepal and our fourth episode relating to Nepal. Nepal is fantastic. There will be more episodes about treks in Nepal. It's pretty much an endless source of fantastic hiking. As I said, I went to Nepal to hike a trek with Earthbound Expeditions, and I really want to go back to Nepal and plan to do so. There are lots of beautiful, fantastic hikes in the Himalayas, but this is an entirely different kind of trek. Not only does it cross fields and hills and, yes, mountains, but it also gives you a cultural journey through Nepal. Hiking on this particular trek will allow you to see and interact with many different ethnic groups in this incredibly diverse country. And I love that the trek that we're going to cover in this episode does not exist anywhere else. That is because Rajan pioneered the route with the help of an American thru hiker who goes by the name Magic Mike, which I think is a fantastic moniker. So they forged this trail and I've only hiked it once, but did it very carefully with the intent of making it a hike that others could do through Earthbound Expeditions. We've covered many trails in different stages of development. Some trails have been around for centuries and others that are brand new. So this hike falls into the category, obviously, of hikes that are in the early stages of development, having only been done once. But that is also what makes it so intriguing. So I think part of what we can get out of this episode is to get some insight into what it's like to pioneer a route, which is something we could all do. We can all look to connect trails in communities where we live and find ways to walk from one to the other. It's something that I've thought about a lot where I live and have tried to do at times. And this episode has inspired me to think even more about that. So maybe we'll have more on that in future episodes. So let's talk for a moment about Nepal. I've covered this in episode 15, but I think a quick review will be useful. So where is Nepal? It is mostly in the Himalayas, but also in the plains to the south of the Himalayas. 8 of the 10 highest peaks of the world, including Mount Everest, are in Nepal. And Nepal borders primarily India and Tibet, which, putting aside disputes about what Tibet is or should be, is at least today currently part of China. Nepal is a landlocked country. It's primarily a Hindu country, but also has a strong Buddhist history and identity. As I mentioned in the intro, the Buddha was born in Nepal. He was born in Lumbini. Nepal is very diverse ethnically, has many languages, though Nepali is the official language. English is spoken by many, though, especially in the tourist industry. Nepal became a unified kingdom by the 18th century, and its capital is Kathmandu in the Kathmandu Valley. And the Kathmandu Valley had been a thriving trading area along the Silk Road for centuries. Nepal went back and forth between monarchy and democracy into the 20th century. There was a pretty awful civil war in the 1990s and early 2000s, but ultimately that led to a secular republic in 2008 and the end of the last Hindu monarchy. As I mentioned, this trek is really cool because of the cultural aspects more than anything, although also the varied terrain. Let's talk about a few of the cities you would see along the way. First, I've already mentioned Lumbini. Lumbini is not actually on the route for this hike, but it starts near Lumbini And I think you would fly into an airport that's close to Lumbini if you were going to do the hike, and would have the opportunity to and should see Lumbini. As I mentioned, Lumbini is the birthplace of the Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama, born in 624 before the Common Era, or BC. In Lumbini is the Mayadevi temple. Queen Mayadevi was the Buddha's mother. And the temple appears to have been built around 250 BC during the reign of Emperor Ashoka, who was an Indian emperor that brought essentially Buddhism to the kingdom. However, in 2013, there was an earlier wood shrine that dates back to the 6th century BCE, which is actually the time of the Buddha, that was discovered. Lumbini is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it's one of the most sacred Buddhist pilgrimage sites. There's the Pillar of Ashoka, evidencing that Ashoka visited the site and believed it to be the Buddha's birthplace even then, around 250 BC. There's also gardens and monasteries and many modern temples that have been built to commemorate the site. Once you get on the trail, one of the places you go through is Butwal, which is a mixed ethnic city like Kathmandu. It's almost 200,000 people. It's a fast-growing city and region. It's kind of a commercial center. There's the Tinau River in the northern edge of the Terai Plain, where the hills begin, where Butwal is. Historically, it had been part of several different empires. One of the cool things about Butwal is that it was even the site of a battle with the British East India Company troops won by the Nepali Gorkhas in the early 19th century. We'll come back to that in a moment about the conflict between the British and Nepalis. The hike also goes through Tansen in the Palpa district in the hills of central Nepal. Historically, this was the capital of the Mughal kingdom. Later became a Newari bazaar, an important trading center. The hike also goes through Bandipur, which is a place that has several different ethnicities, Newari, Gurung, and Mughal among them. It's a hilltop town in the Gandaki province of about 15,000 people. It was originally a Mughal village, but then by the 18th century, Newar traders established themselves there. Primarily, to my understanding, because it was a malaria-free location being up in the hills, so it was a good place to establish a trading post where you wouldn't be exposed to tropical diseases. It's along the India-Tibet trade route. I looked this one up, and the photos I saw of Bandipur are really appealing. It seems like a really charming town and looks to be somewhere I'd really like to check out. Finally, it also goes through Gorkha in the Gandaki province, which is an area of about 53,000 people. It has an old palace complex, though it was severely damaged in the 2015 earthquake, though there are many temples that were not damaged. So a place that has some religious history and some royal history for the area. And we'll talk more about the Gorkha people. And then there are also numerous other small towns along the route. Let's also talk about some of the ethnic groups you might encounter on this hike. And I think this is important not only because it's important to understand who lives here, but also because, as I've mentioned, Nepal is such an ethnically diverse place with such a varied history, and this route, this hike, gives you an opportunity to come into contact with a number of those groups. So we're going to take it starting from the lower down peoples from the plains, working our way up into the mountains, the same direction that you'd be doing the hike. First, there's the Rai people, who are indigenous to eastern Nepal and still mainly live in eastern Nepal today. They speak a Tibeto-Burman language. As far as their religion goes, they primarily have a religion centered around nature worship and contact with ancestral spirits. There's about 750,000 Rai people. They are also native to India and Bhutan. They're part of a larger group of people called Kirati, and this group of people has ruled the Kathmandu Valley from 800 BC to about 300 AD. One thing that's interesting about the Rai is they historically have had a very strong role for women in their society, and it is said that a man decides nothing without his wife, which is pretty cool. Next, let's talk about the Thru people of southern Nepal and northern India. They live in the Terai, which is a lowland farming region outside of the Himalayas. There's 1.7 million Thru in Nepal. After Nepal unified in the late 18th century, ruling families got land grants and Thru became bonded laborers. So kind of a tough situation there for a while, but that system finally was abolished in 2000. One thing that's interesting about the Thru is because they've long lived on the plains where, as I mentioned before, there might be things like malaria. They actually have a genetic resistance to malaria. And malaria infections among the Thru is 7 times lower than among other peoples. The Thru also consider themselves to be direct descendants of the Buddha. Next, let's talk about the Muggars, who I've mentioned. They are also a Tibeto-Burman ethnic group and constitute almost 7% of Nepal's population, just over 2 million people. They are what would be called a hill people or a hill tribe, living in the hills of Nepal, so not in the high mountains and not in the plains, kind of in the foothills in between. They are one of the main Gurkha tribes, which served as British soldiers in large numbers, and many of whom served outside of Nepal. The Muggars are one of the oldest known tribes in Nepal. They historically ruled the Palpa area and invaded the Kathmandu Valley in the Middle Ages. Almost 80% of them are Hindu, but they incorporate forms of Tibetan Buddhism along with animism and shamanism into their religion. Agriculture and military are their primary occupations, but they also have a reputation as skilled craftsmen and traders. Next are the Brahmin, the Bahun or Hill Brahmin, which are more than 11% of Nepal's population, so around 3.3 million people. They are part of a community called the Khas and speak an Indo-Aryan language. They are primarily Hindu. They're well known for being civil servants in Nepal. Despite that they only constitute 11 to 12% of the population, almost 40% of Nepal's civil servants are Brahmin. When you get to further up toward the Kathmandu Valley area, there's the Newari people. They formerly had a kingdom there in the Kathmandu Valley. And in fact, the word Nepal is from a written form of the word Newar, and thus their name gives Nepal its name. And Newar can be interpreted as meaning an inhabitant of Nepal, essentially. Thus, they are primarily associated with an urban environment and involved in urban pursuits like art, literature, trade, and cuisine, though also some farming. And they speak a language called Nepal Bhasa, a Sino-Tibetan language. The Newari are Hindu or Buddhist and have a reputation for doing economically and socially pretty well in Nepal. There's about 1.4 million Newari, and they constitute around 4.5% of the population. As we start to get higher up into the hills and the mountains, there's the Gurung people who live in the Gandaki province in the foothills of the Himalayas. They are Tibeto-Burman and are one of the main Gurkha tribes. Their ancestry is in Tibet. They originally migrated through Mustang from the north to get to Nepal. They are genetically related to groups in China. Their language is called Tamukiai, which is a Tibeto-Burman language derived from the Sino-Tibetan language family. And the word Tamu is actually another name for the Gurungs. The Gurungs are mostly Buddhist, but also have some people who are Hindu and Christian. They were traditionally a semi-nomadic sheep and goat herding tribe, but are also farmers and traders. In addition to Buddhism, they blend Buddhism with an animistic and shamanistic practice called Bon. And up until recently, most lived in villages governed independently by local chieftains. But now that Nepal has a centralized government, that has changed. They played a big role in Nepal's unification. They're known for being part of the military and police force in modern times. In fact, so many of them have served in the British military that there's a large population of Gurung who have migrated to the UK. As we get to higher elevations, there's the Tamang people, another Tibeto-Burman ethnic group. They live in Nepal, southern Bhutan, and northeast India. There's about 1.6 million Tamang in Nepal in the Central Hills and Himalayas. They are originally from Tibet, but have had genetic mixing with some other Nepali groups as well. Their name actually means horse warriors in Tibetan. They are overwhelmingly Buddhist, but have small minorities that are Hindu or Christian. All right, so those are some of the ethnic groups you might encounter on this hike, among others. One word I've mentioned a few times is Gorkha or Gurkha. There are 2 different pronunciations and spellings. What is a Gurkha? A Gurkha is a Nepali native and some northern Indians who are soldiers. Famously, they were recruited for the British military, and they are essentially mercenaries. The name originally just meant a Nepali, but that was because they mostly came from the Gorkha kingdom that ruled Nepal at the time. In the mid 18th century, the Gorkhas came to power in Nepal, and the British East India Company, who was operating in India, saw the Gorkha kingdom as a threat to their commercial interests. So in 1814 through 1816, there was the Anglo-Nepalese War, where the British East India Company sent forces to invade Nepal and fought the Gorkha kingdom. By the way, if you don't know the history of the British East India Company in Nepal, it's fascinating. This was essentially a commercial enterprise that ran an army and conquered a country, India, which is to me a bizarre event and a really interesting one to try to understand. I mean, think about that today. It's like if Google went to, I don't know, pick a country. If Google went to a large country like China, sent its own army, and conquered the place. It's kind of a bizarre story, but that's what happened. The British East India Company took over India, and it saw the Gorkha kingdom in Nepal as a threat and sent an army against the Gorkha kingdom. Ultimately, the British essentially got what they wanted from the conflict, and they got a treaty that gave them some additional territory in the Terai, the northern plains of India, and what was then the southern part of Nepal. But here's the important thing for our purposes, is that the British were really impressed by the Gorkhas they fought. The British called them Gurkhas, so the Gurkha pronunciation versus Gorkha is from the British. And the British even recruited defectors during that war and used them to fight against Nepal. In 1815, during the war, they created a Gurkha unit, and this eventually became the backbone of British forces in the war. After the war, Gurkha units continued to fight for the British in other conflicts on the subcontinent. Because remember, the British East India Company was subjugating all of India, or trying to, and so it needed the help of whomever it could hire. Over time, the Gurkhas served in numerous conflicts for the British all over the globe. During World War I, there were 200,000 Gurkhas that served. They suffered 20,000 casualties and received almost 2,000 gallantry awards for their bravery. And they fought some pretty tough battles, including at Gallipoli, for example, in Turkey. During World War II, more than 250,000 Gurkhas served. And again, they served all over the world, including in tough battles like in the jungles of Burma. Starting in 1947, pursuant to a treaty, many of the Gurkhas served for India, which was becoming independent at the time. But they have continued to serve for the British as well, including in the Falklands, in the war in the early 1980s, and more recently in Afghanistan. Interestingly, there's also a group of Gurkhas that serve in Singapore, where they make up a special police force as part of a unit designed to address riots and counter terrorism. So that's a little bit about the Gurkhas and about the cities and ethnic groups you will find on this trek. With that background, let's jump into my conversation with Rajan Simkata about creating and hiking for the first time the Nepal border-to-border through hike. Rajan Simkata, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming back on. Appreciate you being here. Namaste.
Namaste.
Tapaiलाई kasto cha?
मलाई सन्चै छ तपाईलाई कस्तो छ
Sansei cha.
सन्चै छ
So you were on the show a while back, and we talked a lot about Earthbound Expeditions then. Could you remind listeners a little bit about what Earthbound Expeditions is and what it does?
Earthbound Expeditions is an adventure travel company that have been working in Nepal's Himalaya since 1999. It's a responsible adventure company, and that also helps to promote Nepal's trekking travel, mostly the remote areas off the beaten track, bringing some new trend to the tourism, including some spirituality or new, unexplored trails. And it only does not do the business, it also helps to promote jobs to the locals and also do a lot of philanthropic activities. We built a lot of school classrooms, especially after the earthquake, then run health camps, distribute some scholarships, build some libraries. So we do a lot of philanthropic activities also, so giving a hope and creating a job for local community here. So not only doing business, we are also a part of the philanthropic activities in the Himalayas.
So, one of the things you mentioned is that you sometimes will have treks that are led on trails that aren't very well known or newer trails. And that's what we're here to talk about today. You actually came up with the idea for the trail that we're going to talk about, which is a through hike of Nepal
Mm,
from the border with India to the border with China. So, all the way across the country.
right.
How did you think of this idea and what led you to want to create this new adventure?
Well, I have heard a lot about the through hikes, and Nepal does have one kind of a through hike. It's called the Great Himalayan Trail from east to west. Long trail walking through the Himalayas, but none of them have done the south to north. India border to China border. This through hike nobody have done. So I have a good friend of mine, Mr. Mike Overster from US. Actually, he's from San Francisco, and he is a triple crown holder. He is a through hiker in US.
Okay.
He have been trekking, traveling with us many times since 2017. He have done several treks, and in 2022, I had a privilege of going a trip with him to Nepal's, Pokhara, Bandipur. These are all cultural site and the birthplace of Buddha Lumbini.
Hmm.
So when we were in Lumbini, then we were traveling to a not so well known border town called Kunua, which is very close to a place called Kudan, where that is the first place where Buddha was enlightened. That's the first place he come back from Bodh Gaya. So when we were in this Kunua border, then we saw these Nepal and India border pillars. Okay, so we had a very nice conversation, in the whole trip. And then when we were there, then Mike was asking me that, Rajan, will it be possible from walking from this border, from India border, this border town, to all the way to China border town, or is there a possibilities of walk through whole Nepal to meet from India border to China border? So that struck me in my head. Oh, that will be wonderful, because we have so much of history and culture and so many good things, and nobody have thought about it. And since he's a through hiker, probably that is what it came in his mind. So he said that if you will find the possibilities of linking this trial together, and if you are going, I'm going. I know you are the only person that make this happen, and I will go only if you are going. And I also told him at the same time that I will go only if you are going, because he knows, about the through hikes. So then that's how this idea started brainstorming.
Okay, so you and Mike are brainstorming, thinking of how we're going to do this, and what do you do? Because there's no trail there now; it's just roads or dirt roads or through countrysides and farms and villages. How did you decide where to trek and where to make the route?
Yeah. So once we have that in my head, then that is start. I will start thinking. We did a little bit of meditation in Buddha's birthplace in Lumbini also. Before coming to Kathmandu, because Mike in recent days have been very much interested in Buddhism. So he have
Hmm.
done a lot of monastery stay and so on too. So he's interested on that. So then I start doing some homework. It took me almost over a year to come up with the trial, because then I studied a lot of Nepal's history. I mean, I was studying before, but now from different perspective, linking the trials and making it more interesting historically, culturally, all this. I actually, in a Nepal's map, I draw, in my website also I have that. So I draw a map first. Drawing in a map in a paper is easy.
Yes,
Walking through
different than
was difficult.
walking.
I will tell you that later on.
Yeah.
So I draw the map. Then I kind of start finding out the reason to go, because people want a reason to go. Why that route? So then from that border we talked. I try to include Buddha's hometown, Buddha's palace. Siddhartha Buddha's Gautam Buddha's palace, that is called Kapil Bastu. Then come to Butawal. That's another beautiful town. That is where we defeated British Army. In the war in 1872. I think we defeated
Okay.
British Army. They tried to get into Nepal. Then because Nepal was never colonized, we win the war that time. So that town. Then another historical town is Palpa, which is beautiful, because I wanted to make it so interesting that view wise also this is very beautiful, spiritually, historically, this all aspect, this all thing I wanted to include in the itinerary. So I tried to draw the map like that. Then from Palpa, then we went to Keladi Ghat, which is the Kaligandaki river. That was the only place where people from all 17 different districts used to cross to go to India. So that
Oh, okay.
portion that used to have a boat before, now there is a breeze. Then I studied about the Rishing and Giring, that is the very historical old Magar towns, and that is the historical route that our ancestors walked to unified Nepal. When Nepal was a small country, that is the unification route we took. Then we went all the way to the top and come down to a place called Damauli, which is the place where they believe that the Mahabharata's writer Beda Bas was born. So spiritually, this is very highly connected, because the Mahabharata, one of the epic stories, was written by Beda Bas, and he was born in Damauli. Then we came to Bandipur. Bandipur was a historical town, and it was a trade route between China and India at that time. So that was a historical town, very beautiful town, and have a lot of great views of the mountain also, because I wanted to include that also. It will be interesting for tourists. Then we went down and went to Gorkha. Gorkha is the kingdom where the first Nepal's unification happened around 268 years back.
Okay.
Okay, so that was the time, and this is the king who envisioned the whole unification of the country. Then from Gorkha, we went down to Budigandaki, which is a holy river also. We crossed over and came all the way up to the Singla Pass, to Ganeshimal region. So that is the historical route. And then that it happened to be that is also the route that the Padmasambhava, Guru Rinpoche, Dalai Lama also walked that trail. He also walked that trail, very historical. And it goes up to 4,060 meters, pretty high, beautiful view, brilliant view. And then from there we go down to Chilime, and then from Chilime we went all the way to Rasuagadi, which is the border of Nepal and China, Tibet. So Rasuagadi is the place where we lost our war, and we lost some land. So this is all very historical, cultural, spiritual, and naturally beautiful landscape. So that is how we designed. I studied a lot of history textbook. I got the map from different places, and education was difficult, drawing the map was easy actually.
Well,
Yeah.
that sounds like an enormous amount of work that you put in to design the route.
Yeah.
When you were actually walking the route, what were the paths like that you ended up walking on? Are they mostly dirt roads, roads without asphalt, or what kind of actual footpaths are you walking on during this trek?
Well, when we started, I didn't know that how it gonna go, because this was first time, and I'm glad that I took Mike, because because we need to link foot to foot, right? He really helped to mapping out and so on. It was nice and good company to talk and things like that. So we started from Kunua. When we started from Kunua to Kapilavastu, Buddha's birth hometown, and then come all the way here up to Butowal, it was pretty much a road.
Okay.
Road means not always a highway, but some side roads.
Hmm.
Because a good thing or bad thing about Nepal is that in last 15, 20 years, we have a lot of road we are building.
Hmm.
Lot of road we are building. We call them a development. I don't know if it is the right term, but anyway, linking village to village, house to house. And one bad thing we have done, at least I have realized, many people have to realize a lot early, is that they have been putting the road on the same walking trail.
Mm.
Majority of the road falls in the same walking trail. I think the reason is because the walking trail already existed, and they think that is the shortest or easiest, or they don't have to take too many people's land because the trail is already existed. But in my opinion, actually we should have been saving those trails, in my opinion.
Yes.
But it didn't happen anyway, so that is how we walked. But then Mike and I decided also, not always, majority, some road I already knew, some trails I already knew, but whenever there was a new trail, we always try to hire a local guide also, because we know the villagers will know how to go from one village to another village, right?
Okay.
So we paid extra money. This is good for them also, because then people get excited, people get job, they get something to connect with the tourism or tourist. So we hired, in few places we hired the local guide for us, taking from one village to another village, so that they know the trails, so it was easy for us also. And when we began, start saying that we are going to Tibet or China, nobody would believe first or second day, at least couple of days. Nobody believed. People were just laughing at us, oh, these guys are going to China. Nobody believed. I had a Nepali flag on my bag, and I just keep saying that, my topi, I most of the time wear, and I was keep saying that I was going to China or Tibet. Nobody would believe because it's too far from there to China.
Well, that's interesting that you mentioned that, because when you start, you're basically in the flatlands, right? It's very flat
Exactly.
at the near the border with India, but then
At least 3 days you are in flatland.
yeah, so the people who are villagers in this area, they know, I presume, that people hike in the Himalayas, but they've never seen trekkers probably in their region.
Right.
What did they think of that? That they just didn't even believe that you were doing it, I guess.
Actually, we were like celebrities, we people were taking photos. And I am a little celebrity too, as you know. I sometimes work in TV,
Yep.
but not for that reason. People taking the photo because of Mike and me and other people walking with a big backpack. They were surprised why people were doing trekking in those flatlands.
Yeah.
Because our idea was different, but they didn't know that. So it was fun actually. It was fun, and overall majority of the trail we walked, I would say, as of today, about 50-50, maybe 50% is pretty much road, dirt road, some paved road, and 50% is trail.
Okay. Well, that's not bad. I would expect there'd be more roads, so that's great that at least you're able to find enough trail to maybe make up half of it. So that's great.
I'm hoping in the future, I'm hoping that if the local people are more aware, and if we develop this trail more, not now, maybe another 5-10 years, when the things are more stable, when this gets a little more popular, then I'm hoping that the locals, the clubs, or I heard in US also they do a lot of local clubs, local hiking clubs, local sports club, or people from the village, they always maintain the trail, or they keep the signs, all this kind of maintenance of the trails. So I hope the locals will do that and find some alternative trails to link to these trails to make it more interesting.
Hmm.
I'm hoping in couple of years it will really take a momentum, and then people will start hiking more tourists start going, more job will be created, more trail will be maintained, it will be more popular and nicer. And the best way to enjoy Nepal, mostly in winter, let's say from November to March, because that's the time frame I assume that we should trek.
So that's great. So this is a trail that you can do in the season when it would be too cold in the high Himalayas to do some of the more traditional routes. So in the winter, you could do a route like this that is most of the time at a lower elevation.
True, true. Except the last 3 days, all of them are completely doable in the winter. Even those 3 days, if we have a proper equipment, only one high pass we have to go is about 4,060 meter. Rest is very beautiful, comfortable weather, great to enjoy Nepal.
Where did you stay along the way?
So yeah, that was a little challenge. I mean, nowadays, of course, a lot of people have started building the homestays because Nepali domestic tourism movement also getting more. People travel in cycles, motorcycle, walking, those kind of things are also developing a little bit because Nepal is a mountainous country. About 20-30 years back, not many Nepali were doing trekking. But nowadays, I think a lot of Nepalis start borning into the towns, for example, cities, Pokhara, Butowal, or Kathmandu. So these city guys wanted to always trek back to their ancestral land or ancient land or historical land. So people start going and exploring. So some homestays are developed. And as you know, Nepali people are very, very hospitable people, as you know. So anybody will let you stay in their homes, homestays, or simple stays. When we were trekking this time, we were a small group, Mike, me, and then two other, Nepali supporters, helpers from our office, Chatan Rai and Kaji Sherpa. These two guys were with us. So we were a small group. And sometimes we will share the floor together or beds to, same room or sometimes two rooms. In the bigger cities like Butowal or Bandipur, Gorkha, in those places there are hotels existed. So we stayed in a separate room. Even Mike got his single room, so that was fine. But some of the places we were sharing the room and simple homestay, good food. So I would not recommend that if we have a big group, let's say 20 people, 15 people, 10 people, travel together at once, then certain places the accommodation can be difficult, or people might be able to stay in multiple houses, not in one houses but multiple houses, which is good for the local economy also. but a small group, 4, 6, 8 people, I think we can always trek together, not a problem. But at the beginning, this trail is not ready yet to explore, own, taking the backpack and go and things like that. Couple of years, I think we still need to do as a guided trip, or at least you need a help of the guide or porter, or some people, because the trail is kind of not well marked or not fixed, or there is no signs or anything yet. But hoping that once it take the momentum, then the more signs, more maintenance will be done, so people can also probably do individually, as a backpacker. But couple of years, I think we'd have to do this as a guided trip. But it is possible, and it is not a luxury at all. It's beautiful, but simple homestays, some of them have a toilets and bathrooms even inside the room, some of them don't. So out of, let's say, about 20 days trip, 5 or 6 nights accommodations are very good, no problem at all. Rest of them is all homestays, simple, yet clean enough, comfortable enough, not nothing luxury for sure.
And I would imagine with home cooked food as well.
Yeah, beautiful food, good food, and fresh vegetables they pick up, fresh eggs or milk, just got from the cows or the buffaloes. So yeah, everything was pretty fresh actually.
And you were saying that this was about 20 days total. How far of a hike is this in distance?
The total kilometer when we map is about 460 kilometer.
Okay.
460 kilometer. We did it in 17 days. But for the tourist, I will recommend at least 20, 22, or 25 days, because some days we walked really long, because this was our exploratory type of trip and we didn't know where the accommodations and things are. So some days we end up walking very long. Some days we walked even a 37 kilometer, 38 kilometer. I would imagine tourists will walk only 18 to 20 or 25 kilometer max a day. So assuming that, it will be at least 20, if not 22 or 25 days, depending on how you want to do it.
So are you actually now offering this adventure through Earthbound Expeditions?
Yes, if people would like to go, we can take them. If they want me to go, then they have to book in way advance, because my schedules are little tight.
Yeah.
But every year, 1 or 2 trips, I would love to go back, and I would love to take people there. If not, we have at least two other staff that have done that route, so we can send. And then hoping that down the line, when we send more people are trained, more people will go to that trail. So I think we can find more people who knows about this trail. But first couple of days, maybe I will keep only 1 or 2 departures. As of now, I had a lot of inquiries, but none of them have booked the trip.
Okay.
So maybe I have not done enough advertisement or anything. So
Yeah. I mean, it takes a certain kind of person to want to do an adventure like this. It's a little different than the traditional routes.
right.
It's really intriguing to me. And somebody like Mike, he goes by Magic Mike. Is that his trail name?
I think that is his a journal name, or he
Okay.
write journals
Oh, a blog.
as a Magic Mike. He have done a lot of trials. He is a good hiker. We have a very good chemistry also, because I'm a desperate lover of the hikes and Nepal, and country, and community, or the people or environment. I really care about it. I love to talk about it or do something about it. So he likes that aspect of me, so that is why he have been very kind and helpful, telling more people about it, or writing the journals, or checking the map and things like that. So yeah.
Great. Well, I'm hopeful that people hearing about it on this show will be interested to at least inquire and learn more about it.
Hmm.
If you actually go to do this hike, how do you get there? You have to fly from Kathmandu to Lumbini?
Yeah, so the itinerary will be, first they have to come to Kathmandu or to Lumbini first,
Okay.
and then we can spend one night in Lumbini, because it's a very beautiful place. This is where the Buddha was born. There are a lot of monasteries, there are a lot of temples people can visit, do some meditation and things like that. And from there we will drive about 2.5 hour to the border town, where we will actually start the hike. So in our time, because we wanted to save time, and we already been to Lumbini before, we flew Kathmandu to Lumbini same day. Same day we drive to the border and started the hike. But I will always recommend people to spend one night in Lumbini before they start the hike. So then we start the hike, and then it's all walking all the way to the China border anyway. In between, if they want to have a break, for example, in Butowal, it's a beautiful town, people can have a break. Palpa is a fantastic town that have a nice homestay that can do a little side trips to Rani Mahal or other places. It's a good viewpoint. After a few days hike, maybe will be a good Tansen, a good break point, Tansen town, Tansen Palpa. So people can break there. Then people can walk all the way to Bandipur. They can have a break. If they want to have a break journey, they can go to Pokhara. From there, then Gorkha is another town. And then from there onward is pretty much not big towns, it's small towns. And then after that, come back from the border. Then they can go to Kathmandu or Pokhara or do something else. So I don't know if people want to finish in 1 year or multiple years, because when people doing the Great Himalayan Trail, it's a long trail. So people do, in multiple years. They do portion of it. I think this is the same thing they do for American through hikes also. They do in multiple years.
Yes.
So this one also, if people have a 3 weeks or 4 weeks of time, that's great. They can do at once. But if they want to do it in a two break, for example, come up to Bandipur or Gorkha 1 year and then another year from Gorkha to all the way to the border, they can also do that, I think. So Mike actually is thinking to the Great Himalayan Trail in 2025. He want me to go,
Oh,
but
wow.
I have a doubt that I can go. It's a long trip, but I would love to go though.
Okay, so I have an important question. Why are you doing it from India to China? Why are you making everyone hike uphill when you could hike downhill?
That is true. That is true. But the reason is few.
Okay,
One is that because it's a winter hike, so it is always a start to better to start from low end, and also for the climatizing point of view. For the climatizing point of view, when
sure.
you go from lowland to high end, then you already climatize your body. Number one. Number two is that when you go higher and higher, the views are better and better.
Yes, yes.
So your days are more rewarding. The South Tara is also very nice, rice field, or you have a mustard field, beautiful yellow mustard flowers, and it's a different view, different culture, actually different perspective. But then when you go higher and higher, the views get better and better, so people will get more excited, and hopefully they will not drop the drop the idea. They want to see more, they want to see more, so every day
Yes,
is getting
yes.
better. So climatizing, better view, and also it's more exciting to go upward than the downward, I believe.
Yes, you're right. It is. I was teasing a little bit. I think you're right. I would enjoy the hike uphill more anyway.
Right.
One of the things that occurred to me, I mean, these towns sound fantastic. And to me, that's the most interesting thing about this hike.
Yeah.
That's really neat from a cultural perspective. And that's something that on a lot of the high mountain treks, you do get some villages and some neat areas, but this would really be the focus of this hike, is to see these really neat cultural locations. Are there different ethnic groups along this trek? Because sometimes when you're in the mountains, you see Sherpa people or Gurung people, but in this hike, what is that like?
Actually, this hike is the best for, I mean, not maybe for the first time hiker or people who have a short time, because they always may want to go to the big names like the Everest Base Camp or Annapurna Base Camp or Kanchenjunga, big mountains, and they just want to go to the base camp if they have only 2 weeks or 10 days or 14 days. But for multiple people, multiple time who hike Nepal, and want to come back to Nepal or love Nepal, this is the best, because people go from lowland, very beautiful lowland, with the mustard flower, to Buddha's culture, to Tarai people, Tharu people. We meet some of the Tharu people or local people, their home and culture and their living standard and styles and things like that. Then when we go higher to the Butawal, it's a mixed town, it's like Kathmandu, it's a melting pot. It's actually a historical, but it's a new town, because a lot of people from the mountain region have moved to that town. So it's a kind of melting pot. Then when you go to Palpa and this area, these have a completely different Magar Gurung cultures, and also Brahmins. Then when you go to this Rising and Giring areas, these are completely Magar community. Interesting fact is that when we were talking in Nepali, our Sherpas and porters, and we were talking in Nepali, those people won't even understand our Nepalis.
Oh, wow.
So we had to hire a local guide from there to take us from town to town, because those people, some of them were not talking to us because they don't understand our Nepali.
Wow.
So this is Magar culture. Very nice, brave, strong people, very hardworking, good people. Then we come to Bandipur. Bandipur is a different Newari and other Gurung mixed culture. Then go to Gorkha. And then further we go to the Rashwa, like to Singla Pass, Ganeshimal region or Rashwa region. This is completely Tamang culture. So in one trek, you will see at least 15, 20 different ethnic groups, different ethnic languages, different ethnic food, all the culture. For the people who love Nepal or who really want this kind of cultural and spiritual experiences, I personally think this is one of the best trek probably in the world, I will say.
Yeah, that's amazing. I know Nepal has more than 57 or 75. I don't remember the number, but there's lots of different ethnic groups and
Yeah, more than 70 different ethnic groups. Yeah, you're
more
right.
than 70. Okay. Yeah. So, and sounds like on this particular trek, you get to meet lots of people from many different ethnic groups, and that's fantastic.
Yeah, because we go nine different districts and then three different provinces.
Wow.
Because Nepal now have no monarchy. Nepal become a republic country, so we make the provinces, you know. So
Uh
we
huh.
go three different provinces, nine different districts. So it really cross the whole country and the cross culture and all this landscape also.
I know that this is a very cultivated area where there's a lot of farming and things like that. But is there any wildlife that you're seeing, or birds, or things that are local to Nepal that people might be interested to see that you saw when you were on this trek?
Yes or no? I mean, because we will be walking through the villages and connecting one village to another village, one town to another town, or mountains. Some of the days we actually walk through the jungles for a day or two. Sometimes you don't even meet the settlements. I will tell you another story that where we got the lost, the trail, and sleep in the goat hut for a night, and it was a nightmare actually. Right now it sounds fun, but that time was a little scary because we heard the leopard or the tigers roaring around, and
Really?
our sleeping place have no doors, nothing, open sky. That was quite scary. That was from the Singla Pass because it was quite foggy, cloudy, and a lot of snow. So kind of we lost the trail. We even took the local guy, but he also haven't walked that trail too much in the winter, so we kind of lost the trail and we had to sleep in the hut for one night, cooking all the boiling all the snow for water, and no food because we were not prepared much to stay overnight, middle of jungle nowhere. So that was a quite a scary moment. I have shared that stories in my Facebook page also. Probably Mike's journal also have that story, so people can go to the website and read those stories. So that was quite scary. We personally did not see many animals in the trail, although we walked through some of the jungles. Some of them are thick jungles, pine forest, sal forest, different forest. Some moments were a little scary. We were thinking, oh, maybe some animals will be there. We did not encounter any, but we can expect maybe in the south, in Tarai, maybe some days we will maybe encounter some elephants, maybe
Oh, wow.
first 2 days, and then after that maybe only leopards, monkeys, maybe bear. In more north, maybe tiger or snow leopard also there,
Mhm.
and possibly pandas also. Ganeshimal region have some pandas, but they are very shy.
Is it the red pandas?
Red pandas,
Okay, wow.
we do have red pandas.
That's great. So, yeah, I understand that the big cats in particular are they're not usually easy to see.
Right, very shy.
Yeah, yeah. And if you see them, it's probably too late.
Definitely we saw some very fresh footprints for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it sounds like one of the things that happened that you didn't expect was getting lost in the mountains that one night and having a difficult night. As someone who was trying to develop a new trail, were there other things that happened that you realized you had to do differently than you expected?
Well, now we know. Now we know how to plan that day. Okay,
Okay.
and even Mike and I was discussing that if we organize this for the tourist commercial point of view,
Yes.
then maybe we have to camp one night in between. Maybe we will provide some tents or food because that day was quite
Okay.
a long day. Even if we did not lost the trail that day, maybe it would have been difficult for us to reach to the camp that evening because that was a long day for sure. So we were thinking that maybe we need to break that journey. So interesting thing is that the day before there is a place called Gonga, which is about 3,800 meter. From there we would go high up to like 4,300 meter or something like to the pass, Singla Pass, and go down. That was the day. That night when we were staying in that lodge, we actually hear some of the other people got lost,
Ah,
and they were scared and things like that, and we assume that those people went to the other side of the town, because if you miss the trail and go other side of the town, there is some small villages, and that is what it happened. They did not get lost, although, as you know, in every year in Nepal's Himalaya some people get lost because they do not hire guide or porter, so that possibilities is always there. But that night we were hearing that story, and we were actually kind of not confident or laughing at them. "Oh, it's normal. People may, you should not lost the trail." We were saying that. We were kind of teasing. But then next day when we wake up and had a breakfast and went up to the Singla Pass and then go over and come down, then it was like a midday around 11:30 or so. Then the fog is so thick that you will even hard to see a feet or 2 feet away somebody. Very very thick fog. And at the beginning when we were coming down from the pass, we saw where the trail was going, because it was a little not well marked, because it's not a well walking trail. Plus it was winter and snow, so fresh snow, so it's difficult to find the trail always in a fresh snow, as you know. So then we know where we were going, kind of, the direction.
Hmm.
Then when we get down from the pass, then when we come to the ground where the trail would go, then we completely lost that where the trail is. Then every trail looks similar, every place, because there is no fresh footprint or anything. So it was very hard, and then we just keep watching for the right trail to follow. We lost about 1.5 2 hours there, got tired, a lot of snow. So we thought, oh my god, if we lost, then we can't go up, we can't go down, because it's getting dark, and what time the fog will go out, we don't know. But we next day we had a really good view. Even that evening I have some good photos from that camp. So then we kind of decided, okay, we'll stay here, kind of a rest, and then tomorrow early morning when the sunlight is there, then let's find the trail. Then tomorrow morning we again had a confusion. Mike and I had a quite heated debate that which trail to take. I convinced him, this would be the trail to go, and his GPS or something was showing different, and then the locals, when we try to phone locals, sometimes the phone was working, sometimes not. Then we were trying to get the ideas, but local also won't know when they don't see which tree is that, which fork is that, which, where we are, we don't know, they don't know, because there is no GPS or Google Map or anything. So finally, kind of we decided, okay, this is the trail we should take. Then we took that trail, and that was the right trail. So then we go through and then walk up. That was a long day, beautiful views, a long day. And then at the evening we got a really good guest house at the Somdang. Very nice guest house, good food, everybody was very happy because last day we didn't have any food.
Yeah.
Water was finished, our energy was down, but that day we really happy. And after that, Mike and I kind of realized that day maybe we should have a break, because that might be too long, for especially for commercial trekkers or non-season trekkers, because we were season hikers. For us, 30 kilometer, 35 kilometer is not a bad hike, but for them it might be too much. So if we do, commercial, or if I lead again that trip, we'll break it and make it maybe a camping. Maybe we'll send a separate group of people to meet it there, or do a small camping before we go further, or something like this.
Well, that's great. You got to make all the mistakes so that when other people come, they don't have to make those mistakes.
Yeah, first time is always difficult. When I did a
Yeah.
kind of a press meet in Kathmandu after finish the trek, everybody was surprised. Even Nepal Tourism Board, everybody was surprised how we do it in a very relatively low budget. Many people think that we are very courageous, very very daring personality to do it.
Yeah, courageous or crazy, one of the two.
Yeah, both. Crazy too.
One of the things you said reminded me, Nepal recently changed its rules, and now don't you have to have a guide on every commercial trek in Nepal now?
That is true. Mostly to the areas like Everest, Annapurna, Langchang.
Okay,
Some short treks or treks around Pokhara or some places they may not need it, but it is mandatory. It is mandatory. The reason is for the safety and also to create more jobs to the locals.
sure.
And also I think it is good to always have a guide or a porter, because to understand about the local culture, food, traditions and things like that. So that was the reason that we make it mandatory. So it's in place, but it's still sometimes people just try to ignore,
Sure.
because not every place have the check post or things like that. We still have a year, few people get lost in the mountains for sure.
All right. So I have one final question about this hike. So, Rajan, what would you say is the good official name for this hike? You came up with the route, so you get to call it something. Is it the Nepal border to border through hike or the Nepal through hike? What's a good name for this hike?
Yes, I'm also debating. Maybe I need to take a suggestion from you or some of the people who love Nepal and who love hiking.
Yes.
But for now, we have kept it as a Nepal border to border through hike. You are right.
Okay.
That might be the good name for now. But if we can come up with the different names, I will always welcome. But a border to border through hike, it could be the right name for now.
Okay. Well, that sounds great. Thank you so much for talking about the Nepal border to border through hike. It sounds like a really amazing adventure. And like you were saying, a really great cultural opportunity that a lot of the treks in Nepal don't have so much cultural diversity as this hike would have.
Right.
That's definitely a high point. I've got a few more questions, if you don't mind, before you go.
Sure.
Are there any other routes that you would love to try that are new and haven't been tried besides this one?
Yes, well, as Nepal have a lot of beautiful trekking trails, as you know, and some of our, friends always come back for multiple treks. Some of them have done four, five, six, seven different treks. Kanchenjunga is another beautiful area to trek. That is the, sixth highest mountain in the world. That is completely in the eastern region of Nepal, border to Sikkim and Darjeeling of India. So that portion is very nice. The western part of Nepal, like Api, Sepal, or the Dolpo Rara area, is a very unexplored, beautiful areas. Now many of them can be accessed through the road. I mean, that used to be only flights to those towns to start the trek. Now to those towns you can actually drive by jeeps or bus. Of course, some drives are a little rough, but you can drive and then start the trek. So those are completely unexplored area. And after this through hike, border to border through hike, some of the people are now talking about, West Nepal through hike or East Nepal through hikes,
Uh
which
huh.
I'm really beautiful. I'm very glad to hear, because people may want to do like eastern side or western side,
Yeah.
also, India border to China border, that side. So this is one that we have explored. I hope more people will be inspired by that. So people who are season trekker for Nepal or repeat visitor, or people who keep coming back to Nepal, this might be one of the, this border to border through hike might be one of the thing that they would like to do. But there are many other beautiful hikes that I would recommend. Limi Valley is another beautiful hike, very far western Nepal, closer to in Tibet border.
So at the end of the day, for you personally, why do you love to actually go out and do these treks? Because you're a business owner and you have lots of guides that work for you, but you're actually going out and doing the hike yourself. Why do you love to do it?
Well, the thing is that I was born in the mountain. I was born in the mountain. I'm not a city guy. I love the nature or adventure and the spiritual aspect of it, because walking itself is we call trekking as itself as a walking meditation, right? So when you are walking into the nature, you think, you have a lot of ideas, and your mind will kind of stay still or organized, because in the cities too many things, and then your mind, or you may become more sinner in the nature. You are more pure and holy, I believe. That's my belief. So, and not only that, I would like to give a hope for the people of Nepal, people of world, or I want to give an expression that there are so much more things to explore and enjoy, rather than depressed, or life have to be more exciting. And I want to create a hope, because Nepal have a huge brain drain issues.
Hmm.
And Nepal's village, a lot of people from village move to the cities or to other countries. So Nepal's villages are actually emptying, they are getting
Hmm.
less and less people, although facilities are more, people are less. So if we can revive through tourism to these villages, we can create a hope, we can create an excitement, and also this is for tourists to give something new, something extraordinary experience. So when I tell this to the people, some people don't get it, they don't understand. So I want to go myself and explore, and I want to lead by an example, that hey guys, you can do it, we can do it, let's do it. So when I do it first time, then in the future other guides, our guides, other people can do it, but somebody have to start. So I want to be one of those.
That's great. Razan Simkata, thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here. This is a great opportunity.
Thanks again to Rajan Simkata for coming on the show. I think his enthusiasm for this project is really infectious, and I hope we have inspired you to hike the Nepal border-to-border through hike, or maybe even inspired you to pioneer your own trekking route. And if you've enjoyed this episode, tell a friend about it, or better yet, give us a good review on whichever podcast service you use. And keep in mind that this podcast is entertainment and meant to spark your interest. If you decide to hike the trail, do your own research. Like anything else worth doing, outdoor adventure has risk. So when you go, pack your common sense, and when you get back, tell me how it went. Next time on Trails Worth Hiking. Instead of a point-to-point hiking route, we're going to climb a massive snow-capped dormant volcano on a trek that will take many days of slow ascent as we acclimatize to our highest altitude trek yet. Yep, we'll go even higher than Everest Base Camp with the help of guides and porters as we summit the highest mountain in Africa. In fact, the highest freestanding mountain in the world above sea level. Yep, you guessed it. Next time on Trails Worth Hiking, we climb Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania. If you have any questions or feedback on this episode or ideas for future episodes, including if you want to be a guest and talk about a trail that you've hiked, reach out to me at trailsworthhiking@gmail.com. And please follow us on Instagram at Trails Worth Hiking Podcast. So start planning your next hike, and before you know it, you'll be on the trail. Thanks for listening.